Hi, hello everybody. So this is the video dealing with factoring trinomials. This is sections 5.3 and 5.4. I'm going to focus in section 5.4 here. So there, as you can see here on the page, and as I mentioned before in class, there are two types of trinomials. The first trinomial has this format, ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are numbers. A cannot be 0, but in the first type, the coefficient to x squared has to be exactly 1. So this is type 1, where we covered in section 5.3. The ones that we're going to see now have the same format, ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are numbers. A cannot be 0, but a now must be greater than 1, a positive number. And there's a different technique for that. It's called the AC method. And you see, and I'm going to explain why it's called the AC method. So we're going to go over these examples here. I'm going to solve each one of them. The answers are already here, but you'll see exactly how to do each problem. So let me just copy this problem first. We'll go here to whiteboard. Okay, so that didn't copy very well. So maybe I can just copy it directly. So minus 2x plus 8x squared minus 3. So let's go here. So the problem will be factor minus 2x plus 8x squared minus 3. Let's make sure that I copy this thing right. Minus 2x plus 8x squared minus 3. Okay, this is correct. So we have to factor. The very first thing that we have to do is make sure that we put the trinomial in proper order. Okay, so proper order. The proper order is the x squared component comes first, the x component, and then the number. So this is the proper format. And then we realize that we have a trinomial with leading coefficient greater than 1. So the technique is, and this is why it's called the AC method. So it's called the AC method because we have to multiply these two numbers. Okay, so similar to the trinomial with leading coefficient 1, in this case, we are multiplying these two numbers and we have to find a product that is equal to A times C. So the product has to be 24. And the sum has to be equal to the B value, which in this case is -2. So remember, once the trinomial is in proper format, the coefficient to x squared is A, coefficient to x is B, coefficient to this x to the 0 power is C. So in this case, A is 8, B is -2, C is -2. Okay, so go back to my product, which has to be 24, minus 24. I'm going to ignore the minus for now, and I'm going to find all of the pairs that can give me a product of 24. So 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and 4 and 6. And yes, we could tweak the numbers, right? I'm not interested in the sign right now because I am going to find out the sign in a minute. Now, once I have the possible pairs whose product is 24, I have to look at these possible pairs and I have to find one that can give me a sum of -2. The only one that can give me a sum of -2 is this pair right here. All of these other ones are just too far to give me a sum of 2. So I'm going to choose 4 and 6. The problem is, as it is right now, if I add these two numbers, I get 10. I don't get -2. So I have to change one of these signs to make sure I get the -2. The only way to get a -2 is if 6 is negative and 4 is positive. Now, when I add the 2, I get -2. And when I multiply them, I get negative 24. So the pair I am looking for is this pair. Once I found the pair, the very next step is I am going to, so this is my first step. I am going to rewrite the B term using the pair. So the original trinomial was this. I am going to rewrite 8x squared. Instead of writing negative 2, I am going to write plus 4x minus 6x minus 3. Notice that plus 4x minus 6x is exactly negative 2x. So at this point, I am going to factor this by grouping. All right, so as before, I am going to group the first two, and I am going to group the second pair. So out of the first group, so this will be maybe my third step, factor by grouping. Okay, so out of the first pair, I can factor 4x. So this is regular GCF. And I will get 2x here, right? 8x squared divided by 4x is 2x. 4x divided by 4x, 1. Out of the second pair, I will factor a 3. But remember, whatever this sign is in front of the second pair, you have to factor that sign as well. So I'm going to factor negative 3. I will get 2x, and I will get plus 1, right? Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is positive. And the goal is to have these two terms, 2x plus 1 equals 2x plus 1. I will factor the 2x plus 1 again. And in the second parenthesis, I will get 4x minus 3. Okay, so this is how we factor a trinomial with leading coefficient greater than 1 using the AC method. So the answer we got was 2x plus 1, 4x minus 3. I'm going to go back to my Word document to make sure that I got the right answer. And 4x minus 3, 2x plus 1. 4x minus 3, 2x plus 1. Yes, it's in a different order, but this order is okay. Okay, so this is our first problem. Let's take a look at the next problem. So I'm going to see if I can copy this thing now again. And we will just write this over here. Okay, I think this is clear. We can read it. And we're going to do the exact same thing. We want to factor this. Let me just write this 6n squared minus 3 plus 7n. And as before, the very first thing that we want to do is, you know by now, we have to put it in correct order. The correct order is the square term first, the term with the power 1 next, and the number 30. And again, I noticed that this is a trinomial because it has 3 terms. The leading term is greater than 1. So I'm going to use the AC method as before. So it's already in order. Now I need to find a product of 2 numbers that it's equal to 6 times negative 3, which is negative 18. And that's why we call it the AC method, because this is A, the 7 is B, and the negative 3 is C. So A6, B7, C negative. So my product has to be equals to negative 18. My sum has to be equal to B, which is 7. I'm going to now try to find all of the pairs whose product is negative 18. 1 and 18, and again, ignore the sign for now. 2 and 9, and 3 and 6. So let's see if we have anything else. No, I think this is it. So there are only 3 pairs this time. And for the sum, I only need to look at the possible pairs that I have from the product, not any other possible pair. For example, 10 and minus 7 would be a 10 and negative 3 would be a sum of 7, but it's not in there, so I don't use it. I only use these possible pairs right here. And the only possibility I can see immediately is the 2 and the 9. Okay, again, if I add them as they are, I will get 11. I don't get a sum of 7. So one of these two values has to be negative. And obviously the 2 has to be negative because now negative 2 plus 9 is positive 7. Negative 2 times 9 is negative 18. I have my correct sum. Once I've done that, I am going to rewrite the middle term using this 2 numbers, using the pair. So here we go. So it's 6n squared. Instead of writing 7n, I am going to write minus 2n plus 9n and minus 3. Okay, at this point, my next step is to factor this by grouping, and I am going to group the first 2 and the last 2. And, you know, students sometimes ask, Professor, am I always going to grab the first 2 and then the last 2? Yes, you're always going to do that. It's always going to work. Okay, factor by grouping now. Out of the first group, I am going to factor 2n. And then I get 3n here because it's 6n squared divided by 2n. And minus 2n divided by 2n is negative 1. Out of the second term, and remember, I have to use this sign, whatever the sign is. I can factor a 3. And again, 9n divided by 3, 3n, negative 3 divided by positive 3, negative 1. And again, this is exactly what you want. This term within the parentheses matches that term within the parentheses, and this is exactly what we want because we will factor it again. And I will get in the second parentheses the terms outside 2n plus 3. And this is how you factor by the AC method in this particular case. So the answer we got was 3n minus 1, 2n plus 3. Let's check to see if this is correct. 3n minus 1, 2n plus 3. And remember the order, it's not important. 3n minus 1, 2n plus 3. Yes, that's correct. Okay, good job. I am going to do this one first and the number 3 last. So let me copy this. I'm going to move this up. Put it over here. Okay, excellent. So we are going to factor again. And let me just write it so that we can understand. 2x squared plus 2x minus 3. And notice in this case, the order is already correct. X squared term, x term, and no x term. So I am good to go. I am going to begin by trying to find the product and the sum. Remember, because this is greater than 1, it's the AC method where I am going to multiply the A and the C, and that will give me negative 6. And that's the pair I need to find. The sum will be B, 2. So I'm looking for the pairs that can give me a product of negative 6. So 1 and 6, ignore the minus for now, ignore the sign, and 2 and 3. Out of these possible pairs, I need to find one of the pairs. In this case, I only have 2. That can give me a sum of 2. But if you paid attention closely here, it is impossible to get a sum of 2 with this pair, and it's also impossible with that pair. So it's not possible to get the sum of 2. So in that case, what does that mean? Well, it means that the trinomial, in this case, is not factorable. And we call a trinomial, or any term that's not factorable, any expression that's not factorable, prime. Okay? So if you have an exam or an assignment and your trinomial or your expression is not factorable, you can either say not factorable or you can say it's prime. Okay, since let's check the answer. I think the answer is correct. Not factorable or prime. Great, so that's good. Very good. So that's another example. And let's do the last one here. This is an interesting example because you can see there are two variables that we have to take into account right now. But it's done the exact same way. I will show you the technique. And this is our last example. For this section, okay? All right, so here is where we are. And let me just write this a little bit better. So I have 2x squared plus xy plus 15y squared. So notice that, again, I have two variables. I have x and I have y. Normally, I would have just 2x squared plus x and plus 15. So this is extra. The second variable here is extra. So this is how you're going to do it in the event you have a trinomial that looks like this. You are just going to work with the first variable. Okay, this is what you're going to work with. Okay, so now this looks like a regular trinomial with the leading coefficient greater than 1. So this is the AC method again. I am going to find the product just as before, find the sum. Right? So product of A, this is the B, this is the C. So the A is 2, B is 1, there's an invisible 1 here, and C is 15. So my A times C is 30. All right, and my sum is 1. All right, so now I need to find all of the possible products that can give me a 30 whose sum is 1. All right, so I can write them here: 1 and 30, 2 and 15, maybe 3 and 10, and maybe 5 and 6. All right. Let's make sure that I copy this thing correctly. Minus 15. I copied this incorrectly. So let's fix this thing here real quick. This is supposed to be minus, no problem. It's easy to fix. Minus 30. Okay, so these are the possible pairs. And I can clearly see that this is the only possibility that can give me a sum of 1. And how am I going to get a sum of 1 from here? Well, 1, if I just add them as they are right now, I will get 11, which means that the 5 has to be negative, right? Because now 6 minus 5 is 1. And their product will be negative 30. So this is the correct pair. Once I have the pair, I'm going to do it just as I did before. I am going to rewrite the trinomial using the pair. So here's my 2x squared. So instead of writing 1x, I am going to write minus 5x plus 6x and the minus 15. I will then factor by grouping. Remember, first pair, second pair. Out of the first group, the only thing I can factor is x. And inside the parentheses, I will get this, right? 2x squared divided by x is 2x. Negative 5x divided by x is negative 5. Second term, I have to factor this sign. And out of these two, I can factor a 3. 6x divided by 3, negative 15 divided by 3 is negative 5. Again, I have a match. This parenthesis and that, which is exactly what I want. I will factor it out again. And in the second parenthesis, I will get x plus 3. Great. Now, this is the answer for this problem right here, which is not the original problem we had. So the final answer is the following. So here is your answer from the problem before, right? The regular trinomial. All you have to do now, remember, we just omitted the second variable, but this was removed. All you have to do once you get your final answer here is to attach the second variable at the second term. Okay? And this will be your final answer. And you can check that. If you want, you can check. I'm going to do the check here only once for you to see that this has to be exactly the original expression as we started. So how do we do that? Well, we're just going to FOIL. So 2x times x, 2x squared, 2x times positive 3y plus 6xy, negative 5y times x, negative 5xy, negative 5y times positive 3y, negative 15y squared. These are like terms. 6xy minus 5xy is just xy, and here's your 15y squared. Okay, as you can see, it's identical to the original, and that means that this is correct, which is our final answer. So if you have a second variable, remove it as you do the problem, get the solution to the regular trinomial, which is here, and at the end, attach the second variable to the second term in each set of parentheses. This is all that's required for that particular problem. Okay, so that concludes our session dealing with factoring trinomials, the current section 5.4.